It is an absolute landmark day in the history of intercollegiate athletics, a day that will shape and reshape how we know and what we feel about college athletics and how they function forever. That is not hyperbole. Today, the NCAA and the House settled their lawsuit, and effectively, the NCAA has agreed, yes, colleges and universities can now pay their student athletes in a revenue share. Now, I'm going to talk about this in a way that I know a lot of you disagree. That's okay. But I'm going to talk about this in a manner that I want to be on the record so that I can be, when we look back in a year or 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is, you'll look back and say, and now I'm on the record saying this because I'm going to be right about it. Because I've been telling you this for years. And I've been telling you for the last year, I've had firsthand conversation with administrators that had already begun working on how they would manage their budgetary process in the not only possibility, but inevitability of a revenue share. There's something that I bumped across earlier today that I thought was fascinating. So this is going to be let me give you the overarching principle here. Effectively, what's going to happen now, and Ross Dellinger was here yesterday, I thought did a great job explaining all of this. The settlement is going to pay out $2.8 billion to student athletes from 2016 through the present day. There's a metric that they're putting together to determine what student athletes get how much, effectively. So, and it'll be paid out over 10 years. So the hypothetical that Ross gave us, let's say someone like Trevor Lawrence gets $500K. Well, he'll get $50K a year for 10 years to match his $500K. And obviously someone like Trevor Lawrence would get more than someone who is a non-revenue sport athlete. For example, like if you're a volleyball player at Southeastern, for example, you're going to get paid. It's just not going to be what Trevor Lawrence got paid. So I'm fired up about this. And I want to be very clear because I know there's the whole amateurism is dead and they're ruining college athletes. Let me be very, very abundantly clear about this. And then I'm going to get to the points that I want to make about how this is going to move forward. Too many adults look at this process and you're blaming the kids. You're blaming the student athletes. Too many of you. Oh, they're greedy. Isn't a college education enough? Sure, it was enough. Education, tuition, room, board, it was enough until the adults in the room got greedy. That's the problem. When every TV deal started adding zeros on the end, and you start adding games to the regular season in college football, why? Not for competitive balance. Do you really want to see LSU play nickels? Why did you do that? It's a money grab. Oh, we're going to go play these neutral site games. Why? Money grab. Oh, we're going to expand the playoff. Why? Money grab. Everything is about money. The adults in the room figured out a way to monetize and scale college sports, primarily football and men's basketball, in a way that it hadn't previously. And so what happened? Everybody got stupid rich. Coaches are making $10 million a year, $100 million contracts. You're paying coaches $75 million not to work. You got ADs making seven figures. Everybody's getting rich, except the free labor. And you're going to say, well, isn't tuition and a room and board? Yes, it was enough when it really was about amateurism, when it really was about the ideals of college athletes. It ain't been that in at least a quarter century, probably longer. The adults in the room decided they had a way to all line their pockets. I say it all the time about bowl games. Why do we have bowl games? Somebody tell me, why do we have bowl games? Why can you look at a bowl game that has 100 people in the stands, but they keep playing that bowl game? Why do we keep adding more? As players opt out, we keep adding more bowl games. Why? Why? Because the adults in the room figured out how to make money. Sponsorship TV deal, boom. Bottom line, we wear ugly blazers. We get to gallivant across the country. We make money. And you know what the player said? Bleep your Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. Jerk. I'm going to the league. I'm not risking injury for this. And I don't blame him. Team play. And you know what every adult comes back with? It's always the intangible. team player, quitter, you abandoned your... Oh, really? Really? So you mean to tell me that a guy like Jaden Daniels, who just signed a $30 million contract, should have, been, in the name of being a team player, gone and risked a $30 million deal that's a month away to play in the ReliaQuest Bowl in front of 20,000 people in Tampa? Bleep you. No logical human would ever think to do that. Nobody would advise. You would advise your kid to do that. It's holier than thou adults that are romantic about the way things used to be, and you can't understand the adults are the one that screwed this whole thing up. So yeah, I'm pumped about a day like today. Because the adults are the one that made this mess, and now the adults have to find a way to fix it. All right. Here's what most people don't understand about how college sports plays out. This was a great tweet from a guy named John Arnold. I have no idea who he is. His Twitter is @JohnArnold Foundation. I don't know anything about him, his foundation, but the tweet is completely legitimate, and he spells it out very properly. He writes, Rutgers lost $54 million on college sports last year. UConn lost $30 million. UCF and Houston lost $40 million. Athletics is a money pit for all but a couple dozen schools, with the median losing $16 million a year. The settlement with college athletes adds another $20 million expense. Growing TV money will not solve the problem. Expenses always climb faster than revenues, meaning the rising expenses aren't going to wipe away your deficit. The way you're operating right now, you're not going to make enough to overcome that. So the only thing to do is you're going to have to scale back your spending. Anyway, he goes on. Every pro league has robust cost containment provisions, like a salary cap, to make them sustainable. History shows without them, the pressure to spend is too great. He talks about tuition and fees and all that stuff, but he goes on. College sports is the ultimate zero-sum competition. Only one school wins the championship each year. Half will have a losing record. Universities must use this settlement as a catalyst to install fiscal discipline into the system. Yes. He's got a graph there as well. Look, if you're watching, you'll see it. There's the graph that shows you. The green is how much they spend. The blue is how much they make. And I understand if you're driving, you're listening to this, you're not watching. Just understand the green is always higher than the blue. They always spend more than they make. University athletic departments lose money except for the couple dozen that break even. Okay, so now that you're going to add a $20 million annual expense to pay your student athletes, how do you fix this? Well, you're going to have to get fiscally responsible. Just like if you're the head of a household, you have to budget. You got to pay your mortgage. You got to keep the lights on. You got to make sure you keep the water on. You got to feed your family. You got to clothe your family. Those are your absolute must expenses. And whatever you have left over, you can decide what you want to put into savings. You can decide if you want to go on a vacation. You can decide if you want to go to a fancy dinner or whatever. And there are different tiers. But in the same way that a head of household, you and me, have to be fiscally responsible because we owe it to our home, we owe it to our family, these administrators now have to do the same thing. Oh, LSU is going to generate $100+ million in revenue next year, but they're not going to be able to spend all of that the way that they have. And it ain't just LSU. It's going to be everybody. And what does that mean? It's going to mean a reduction in expenses. It's going to mean maybe you don't fly. Maybe the golf team doesn't fly private. Maybe when track and field goes to a meet, they bus and they stay at a Holiday Inn instead of at the Westin. Maybe that's what it's going to mean. Travel budget. It's all those expenses. People. You're going to cut people. Who are the necessary people to make this thing function? And the biggest, coaches' salaries. Will we get to a point where the dramatic escalation of coaches' salaries actually starts to level off and potentially decline? I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that actually can happen. Certainly not in football and men's basketball. In the other sports, maybe. What most people don't understand is that there are only two sports that make money. Football, men's basketball. That's it. They fund the whole thing. Football and men's basketball fund everything. Everything else loses money. And where we are headed eventually, And this is where I want to be on the record, because I believe that historically I'm going to be correct in saying this. Where we are headed eventually, and I've been saying this forever, college football is going to consolidate. Eventually, you are going to have one college football. It's not going to be at all under the jurisdiction of the NCAA. The powers that be are going to get together, and you're just going to have college football. And they're going to do one TV deal like the NFL has one TV deal, right? The NFC South doesn't have its own TV deal. The NFL has a TV deal. Eventually, it's going to be an invite-only or a buy-in system, and that's how it's going to go for college football. They're going to break away, and their revenue is going to be completely separate, which means men's basketball is going to fund the whole thing, or remaining sports will have to be self-sufficient, which means sell your tickets, do your car washes and bake sales, and that's what you get. Whatever you get to eat what you kill. You raise money, you get to have an athletic department, you get to have a program, or those sports go away. And I think that is also an inevitability. College football will move, it will be its own entity, and what is eventually going to happen in part of these cuts is that there are college athletic departments that are going to cut non-revenue sports. The biggest question of this is Title IX, because how does it factor in with Title IX? And I don't know the answer. We don't have those answers yet. But if Title IX says you got to spend the same on a women's sport as you do on a men's sport, the first thing that's going to get cut from the bottom are the non-revenue men's sports, if that holds with Title IX. But this is where we're heading in college athletics. And you may hate it, and you may kick and scream, but I know something. I know something for a fact. Every single one of you, I don't care if you're a man, woman, young, old, boy, it don't matter. Every person listening to this show, you know what you're going to be doing at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Saturday, September the 1st? You know what you're going to be doing? The same damn thing I'm doing. Watching LSU, USC, and I'm gobbling that up with a spoon. And you're going to do the same thing. No matter how many rule changes, NIL, transfer portal, all the things you purport to hate, none of that outweighs your love for your school, your team that you've cheered for, that's embedded in your reality, it's embedded in your existence, and has been for your whole life, and that's never going to change. And for at least a quarter century now, the adults in the room have taken advantage of that and leveraged that to make more money for themselves, and the free labor finally said, this ain't working no more. And here we are. Finally, the sins of the adults are coming home to roost. This is why we're here today. Not because student athletes are greedy. It's because for the last quarter century or longer, the adults in the room have been the ones using this opportunity to make as much damn money as they wanted. Oh, yes. Yes, you got a free education. Yes, you did. And if that deal was so bad for the schools, paying for tuition, room, board, etc., why do you think they were A-okay with that structure forever? Why do you think they've been A-okay just bebopping along in that structure and that model? Because the money, the revenue kept escalating over and over and over again. These were not congruent. Good for the student athletes. Get what you deserve. I ain't sitting here trying to tout or purport amateurism. It don't exist. It's stupid to suggest it exists. You know what I want? I want to watch LSU, USC in football. You know what I don't want? I don't want to ever see LSU in nickels again. They're not the same. Let's stop pretending they are. You know who's going to cry foul? All the little schools that can't afford to pay this because they've been living above their means for so long, trying to latch on to the Power Five in football and the men's basketball tournament. Why? Not because they want to be competitive and win championships, because they want money. And those decisions are made by the adults, not the student athletes. Go form a group of 5 football league and have its own playoff and championship. Get its own TV deal, exist on its own merit. Will the adults do it? You have a choice now. Because college football is going to just exist on its own. Just one college football. That day is coming. In my lifetime, I would say within the next decade, that's going to happen. And sports, non-revenue sports, are going to start getting cut from the bottom. And every young man or woman who's going to miss out on an opportunity to go to college and play intercollegiate athletics is going to have only the adults to blame for the way they've managed the NCAA and major college sports for the last quarter century or longer.